Okay, in this video we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials, and we're going to start with the simplest example of that, multiplying two monomials. In this case we have the monomial 5x and the monomial 3x. And the way that we multiply these two together is pretty simple. Another way to write this, first of all, is 5x times 3x. Those are just two different ways of writing the same thing. The way we multiply these two things together is we multiply the two numbers together, 5 times 3, and that gives us 15. And then we multiply the two x terms together, the two variables. We have x times x, and x times x we know is x squared, so the answer is 15x squared. For our next example, let's multiply a monomial, that's 2x, by a binomial, x minus 5 in this case. And what we do to multiply a monomial times a binomial is we distribute the monomial through the parentheses. At least that's what we say. And what that means is we're going to multiply the 2x by the x, and we're also going to multiply the 2x by the negative 5. I'll write that out. We're going to take 2x times x, and we're going to subtract 2x times 5. Now you don't necessarily have to write that out every single time, but just to describe what we're doing, I did. 2x times x is just going to be a 2x squared minus 2 times 5 is 10, and we just have an x left over. Okay, now let's try multiplying a monomial times a trinomial. That's 3x squared times 4x cubed minus 6x plus 9. Now the concept is pretty much the same as the last example. We're going to take the monomial and we're going to distribute it, as we say, through the parentheses. We're going to multiply by each one of the terms inside the parentheses. And I'll write that out one more time. We have 3x squared times 4x cubed. We're going to subtract 3x squared times a 6x. And we're going to add, because there's a plus here, 3x squared times 9. Let's multiply it out. We have 3 times 4, which is 12. And what is x squared times x cubed? Well, we had a video called Exponents a couple of videos ago, and we learned that to multiply similar bases with different exponents, you can add those exponents. So we have x squared times x cubed is x to the 5th power. We subtract. 3 times 6 is 18. X squared times x, that's to the 1st power, is going to be an x cubed. And 3 times 9 is 27. We're just left with an x squared. That's the answer for that one. Okay, moving on to the next example. The question is now, how do we multiply a binomial times a binomial? And the idea is pretty similar to our previous examples, except this time we actually have to distribute twice. The first thing we do is we distribute our 2x through our parentheses. If we do that, we have 2x times x, and we have 2x times 3. Then what we have to do is distribute our second term and our first binomial through the parentheses as well. Now keep in mind we have to carry along the negative sign if there is a negative sign on this term. So what we get is negative 4 times x and a negative 4 times a positive 3. Now I should mention it because you're going to hear this a lot in this class. The process of multiplying two binomials, specifically two binomials, is often called foiling. The reason it's called foiling is this. You'll notice what we did here is we multiplied the first two terms in the parentheses. 2x was the first term in the first binomial, and x was the first term in the second binomial. So we have the two first terms we multiplied together. Then what we did is we took the outer two terms in the parentheses, the furthest out, outer. Then what we did is we multiplied the two inner terms in the parentheses, and then we multiplied the two last terms in the parentheses. So if you write that down, it spells out FOIL, so we often abbreviate and just call this foiling. And this process of foiling is specific to multiplying two binomials. Well, let's finish it here. We have 2x times x, which is 2x squared. We have 2x times 3, which is 6x. We have 4 times x, which is just 4x. and we have 4 times 3, which is 12. Now what you'll notice here is we have two like terms. We have two terms where the variable and the exponent are the same. That's x to the first power. So we can combine those two like terms together. If we do that, we're going to end up with 6x minus 4x is just 2x here. And then we can copy down the other terms. That's 2x squared plus 2x minus 12. Now for our last example, we want to multiply a binomial times a trinomial. And the process is really exactly the same as what we just did. What we're going to do is we're going to take the first term and we're going to distribute it through the parentheses. And what we get when we do that is x times 2x squared. We're going to have a plus x times 6x, and we're going to have a plus x times 7. Then what we do is we take our second term and distribute it through the parentheses as well. Again, keep in mind that if there's a negative on any of these terms, you have to multiply that negative in, so we have a negative on the 2. So we're going to have a negative 2 times 2x squared. We're going to have a negative 2 times 6x, and we're going to have a negative 2 times 7. We just need to multiply all this out and then combine our like terms if we have any. We have 2 here. X times x squared is x cubed. We have a 6 here. X times x is x squared. We have 7 times x, that's just 7x. 2 times 2 is 4, obviously, x squared. We have 2 times 6, which is 12x. And negative 2 times 7 is minus 14. Okay, so we do have a couple of like terms to combine. The 2x cubed doesn't have a like term anywhere because there aren't any other x cubes anywhere. So we just have a 2x cubed. However, there is a 6x squared and a minus 4x squared. 6 minus 4 is just positive 2, so we're going to have a positive 2x squared. We also have a 7x and a negative 12x. We can combine those two to get a negative 5x. And there are no like terms for 14, so we just have a minus 14 there, and that's our solution. Okay, video quiz time. Multiply out these two trinomials, and don't forget to combine like terms at the end. Alright, good luck. See you in class.